Hello, friends. My name is Cameron Coleman, and I'm the creator of the Apotheosis Scroll. It is subtitled The Celestial Architecture of the Christian Mystery, because, for the ancient architects of religion, even within the Abrahamic traditions, astronomy supplied the doctrine. Ancient prophets, priestesses, and teachers probably couldn't imagine a time when the celestial ordinances, or constellations, wouldn't be known to all. The authors of ancient oral and textual traditions took for granted that the hearer already understood the basic astronomical ordinances upon which their stories and systems were based. Since astronomical signs corresponded exactly to the agricultural cycle, any deviations from these ancient standards would increase the risk of floods, famines, and droughts. Innovations to the ancient system jeopardized all aspects upon which society depended. Around 2,000 years ago, a higher degree of prosperity and urban differentiation brought more changes to the already embattled old agrarian philosophy. As civilizations transitioned away from agricultural subsistence, which had set the rhythm of their life and taught them the life cycle of the human soul, astronomical memory was exchanged for profound new doctrines that set the human imagination free from the never-ending grind of a toilsome and violent life. These popular and eventually dominant philosophies of the heavenly ideal cast matter aside as filthy and as a taskmaster to imprison the human soul. Because matter is personified in the mother and her corresponding motifs of trees of life and sacred cows, whenever philosophies of the heavenly ideal dominated, symbols of the earth were suppressed, and women and their priestesshoods were disenfranchised. As a result, myths and teachings were dangerously decontextualized from the Zodiac and the other constellations, cutting collective human wisdom loose from its moorings. Centuries before the Christian Church was a unified Gentile institution, organized under a formalized central authority. First-century Christianity self-consciously embodied the tension between these shifting paradigms. While varied strains of Christianity fully rejected the body, matter, and a physical resurrection, other strains of Christianity deliberately kept one foot rooted in the soil of Mother Earth, while the other foot stepped through the veil into celestial promise. In a thematic preservation of the agrarian worldview, and against the philosophical trend of the age, in John's Gospel, the body of Christ was not merely left in the tomb to disintegrate, but with a woman as the midwife, Jesus was said to have resurrected physically, so that in one form or another, the physical body of Christ would live forever. Panel 001 is a green chalkboard. A timeline runs across the length of the top of the chalkboard. The timeline would be better represented as a wheel, but we will start with a timeline and work up to the same representation on a wheel as we progress. The timeline begins approximately 26,000 years ago and includes all 12 of the zodiacal ages of this great cycle, which great cycle comes to its conclusion at the beginning of Aquarius, where a new great cycle will begin, just as it did 26,000 years ago, and as it had done 26,000 years before that, and so on. The ancients reckoned time by the zodiacal age they occupied, even the writers of the sacred history of the Hebrew Bible, who lived in the age of Aries. Because an astronomical age, such as Aries or Pisces, is a long time, roughly 2,160 years, the ancients further reckoned time by counting their generations. Over long periods of time, the oral traditions, reckoning a culture's ancestral history became archetypal. This dynamic is a prize of incalculable worth. While it evidences the folly of taking ancestral myth literally, it conserves priceless generational wisdom. The patriarchal archetypes of the Holy Bible and their corresponding ages are mapped onto this timeline, beginning with Adam and Eve stepping out of their Aquarius Eden and into Capricorn. According to the ancient timeline, we are about to re-enter the Eden where Adam and Eve first inhaled the breath of life. 7 generations, or astronomical seals, after Adam and Eve stepped out of Eden and into Capricorn, the timeline refers to the prophesying of Enoch in the age of Leo. His prophecies represent the destruction of the world by a comet and other catastrophes that moved mountains and changed the face of the land. This cataclysm previewed the epic of the Great Flood of Noah, whose symbolic seals are in Cancer. Many thousands of years later still, at the turning of the age of Aries into Pisces, Yeshua, who would become Jesus the Christ, is born. A loose theme of augury, which is the study of birds to divine the will of the gods, unites many of the images on panel 001. The theme of augury helps to set the scroll firmly in the context of the pagan Greco-Roman world in the 1st century. Most prominent among the images of birds and their signs, on the panel's left, a raven, from a painting on board in the medium of oil paint and spray paint, fills a large portion of a wheel of life. The raven, or Corax, whose habitat is the battlefield, is a soul that straddles the world of the living and the dead. The Corax constellation is superimposed over the raven. Sharing the wheel of life with the raven is a purple butterfly freshly emerged from its chrysalis. It becomes clear after closer inspection that the butterfly was first a man who, like a caterpillar crawling down a branch, enclosed himself in and then ultimately emerged from the butterfly's chrysalis. It is thematic in the scroll that this second birth, as that from caterpillar to butterfly, takes place in the region of the wheel of life that will belong to Cancer, the Queen of Heaven. Herein, Leo will occupy the 12 o'clock position on the zodiacal wheel, Cancer the 1 o'clock position, and Capricorn the 7 o'clock position, etc. On the far right of panel 001, a falconer stands with a bird of prey perched on his gloved fist, the falcon being a clear allusion to the Egyptian god Horus. As such, this falconer is a loose interpretation of the action figure, Orion, whom the Egyptians identified as Osiris. In the proximity of this drawing is a quote scrawled in chalk on the chalkboard. The quote is by Carl G. Jung and is from Man and His Symbols, Approaching the Unconscious. Quote, "The Christian era itself owes its name and significance to the antique mystery of the God-man, which has its roots in the archetypal Osiris-Horus myth of ancient Egypt. It is commonly assumed that on some given occasion in prehistoric times, the basic mythological ideas were invented by a clever old philosopher or prophet, and ever afterward believed by a credulous and uncritical people. It is said that stories told by a power-seeking priesthood are not true, but merely wishful thinking. But the very word invent is derived from the Latin invenire and means to find, and hence to find something by seeking it. The word itself hints at some foreknowledge of what you are going to find. End quote. Near to this quote, and in the lower front, just right of center, there is the impression of a rising phoenix. From a spray painting on board and in the colors of fire and crimson, the phoenix crowned with a halo emerges from the tree of life through the veil matrix. The phoenix is cloaked in blood, but he is as much a being made of spirit as body. Like the freshly emerged butterfly, the wings of the phoenix have not yet been stretched to lift the bird into the air. The posture of the phoenix is also suggestive of a tree whose boughs momentarily hang low, but after unfurling, will spread in full splendor. The quote from Carl Jung continues, quote, "Although there is ample historical evidence for the symbolic relation between Christ and the tree symbol, the serious answer would require a far-reaching dissertation about the antique symbolism of the dying God and its relation to the cult of the Great Mother and her symbol, the tree. The further we delve into the origins of a collective image, or express it in an ecclesiastical language of dogma, the more we uncover a seemingly unending web of archetypal patterns. We have never really understood what we have lost. For our spiritual leaders, unfortunately, were more interested in protecting their institutions than in understanding the mystery that symbols present." End quote. In the proximity of the painting of the phoenix, the constellations, from the lower right and winding upward toward the upper left, are Capricorn, then Aquarius, the second coming of Christ, who has the goats of Capricorn on his left and the sheep of Aries on his right. And then Pisces, then Aries, then Taurus, whose seal is shared with Orion, the Good Shepherd bent in prayer in Gethsemane. Moving on through the veil of the Milky Way matrix, we advance past Gemini, and then to Cancer, who is always being attacked by Hydra, the Luciferic serpent who delivers the constellation Crater, the bitter cup. Presently, we have arrived in the celestial kingdom of Leo. Recalling Genesis 3, Hydra is always poised to strike Leo's heel, while Leo inevitably crushes the serpent's head. In the kingdom of Leo are 3 degrees of celestial glory. Namely, 1, the Big Dipper, 2, the pole star, even the nail in the sure place, and finally, 3, the North Celestial Pole, the point around which even the pole stars revolve, or the nail in the more sure place. One can see that the zodiacal constellations to the right of, and including Aquarius, are labeled 1 through 7. As opposed to the seals or chakras ascending the spine, these zodiacal constellations, together with their corresponding ruling planets, are the 7 ordinances of the covenant path corresponding to the seals of the front of the body. In the Apotheosis Scroll, Jesus Christ is the grand archetype of Initiatic Ascension, the one and only one to follow through these seals. The congregation of the north, in the exalted region of the night sky, is the celestial mountaintop home to the deceased exalted patriarchs. It will be shown hereafter that archangels, in an ancient Hebrew tradition, were represented by the circumpolar stars of the Big Dipper. Yahweh was higher than all of these. In the 1,000 years prior to the birth of Christ, the North Pole sat empty, with no star to mark it, and so Yahweh, who began to be worshipped at this time as the Most High, was an invisible God whose image could not be seen or conveyed, as he occupied a throne in empty space. In this light, consider a reference to the coming Messiah in the star prophecy in the book of Numbers. Quote, "I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob. A scepter shall rise out of Israel." Numbers 24:17. The fervor of the time appears to show that, in fact, sometime in the decades around the year 0, a temporary pole star momentarily appeared, satisfying the symbolic weight of the star prophecy, although it may have been only visible to astronomers east of Judea. In the 1st century AD, while some of the Jews saw one or another of the rebel Jewish princes and zealots as the individual represented by the temporary pole star, and thus the fulfillment of the star prophecy, other prominent Jews, such as Josephus, saw the prophecy's literal fulfillment in Vespasian, the Roman emperor, who, having been born at about the right time, brought peace to Palestine through decisive victory in the Jewish-Roman wars. This controversy lies at the heart of this entire project, for how the star prophecy was or was not fulfilled determined the narrative of Christianity that was to follow. Although there were other contenders for the title, Jesus became the primary candidate for fulfillment of the star prophecy